How do we become the leaders, the visionaries, and the high-powered entrepreneurs that we were destined to be? That is the question, and this podcast gives us the answers. My name is Ben Gerster, and welcome to the Rise and Repeat Show. All right, welcome to the Rise and Repeat podcast, where we talk about the entrepreneurial journey. Today, I'm super pumped about having Ryan Glauser of Good Vibes Glass and Solar. Ryan, super pumped to have you here and chatting with me today, and just really pumped to get to know you better and learn more about your story.
Yeah.
So to kick things off, I'd love the audience just to learn a little bit more about you, like your background, how you got into running this thing. Like, this is a super, super cool brand you've built.
Yeah.
And it's something that looks like you've just like poured your heart and soul into. So what got you into starting Good Vibes?
So that is a really good question. So I would say the journey, our company is relatively new. You can see we're established in 2024, but Kobe, we like to say it's the Kobe.
Oh, nice. Love that.
But I would say the journey started in 2021, right? The journey started in 2021 with this idea. So I've been in sales since I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I did a 2-year mission for the church, the guys in the white shirts and ties.
Nice. Where'd you guys go?
I was in Louisiana.
Nice.
I was in Louisiana.
Okay, cool.
Right after that, I was 19, got recruited to start selling pest control.
Okay,
that was
cool.
2016, right? I'd say the journey started in 2021. The sales journey started in 2016. I left pest control in 2020.
And this is door to door.
Door to door.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're really learning the game, man.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, man, we had knocked close to, so in the 6 years of pest control, I'd knocked close to $150,000 doors.
Dang.
Yeah, it was wild.
Dang, that'll sharpen you.
Yes. So I heard no quite a bit.
Yeah.
Heard a lot of yeses. That's why I kept going back.
Yeah.
And so 2021, I should say, the year after COVID, I made the switch from pest control into solar. Nice. So that's why I say the journey started in 2021, because we left pest control September, after the summer of 2021 in September, and down in Fort Myers, Florida. And from that point until June 2024, we were selling solar, right? And getting into my own business, I had a thought back in 2022 that said, actually, we were in conversation with an old friend of mine, and he brought up this idea. He's like, I wonder what it would be like if we could sell solar cleaning. Like, we just clean people's panels.
So you saw this as a problem that like most of these customers were going to have.
Well, we were just having a rant. Like, we were going out to lunch at Chipotle or something, and he just brought this idea up, and we're already selling solar. And from that moment on, I'm not kidding when I say this. I mean, we've talked about this off the podcast. Is like, I couldn't shake the thought. What if we could start a solar cleaning?
And you didn't bring this back to the company. You weren't like,
no, nothing.
You were just like, okay, cool.
I suppressed the thoughts. I told you we started in 2024. I had the thought in June of 2022, right? That conversation. We didn't clean our first solar system until June of 2024.
So in that time, are you just like kind of just letting this idea ruminate, kind of like circulate in the back of your mind?
It was like putting it off.
Yeah. But it's probably there the whole time. You're like,
it didn't go away.
Yeah.
And so because I was like, I sell solar panels, and in solar, you make great money.
Yeah.
And so I was a money chaser. I chased money, and it hurt a lot of my relationships, right? And we can talk about that later, but the point is, we put off from 2022 to 2024. That's where the idea just never went away.
So what really got it to kick over for you?
The fear, getting over the fear. Do people really need this? Like, do people really need solar cleaning? Can I charge people this? Am I in solar, you're supposed to save money.
Right.
Am I taken away from that? I mean, I sold solar for so long.
Now it's a new cost, a new thing that people have to deal with.
Exactly. And so for those 2 years, more so the last year of that 2-year span where I was hesitant, from the time I got the first thought, 2022 to 2024, in the last year of that 2-year span, it was more, I don't know if people are going to need this. whereas the first year was more just like a thought. And I was okay. Well, I don't know. I'm wasting people's money. And then I started thinking, well, people pay for lawn care.
People maintain everything.
They maintain their lawns and they don't make any money from that.
Mm-hmm.
What if we cleaned a solar system and made their solar system produce better, which then makes them more money? So now I'm starting to think, instead of, am I wasting people's money? It's more like, no. I'm helping people.
No, you're helping them maintain an asset.
Yes.
They've invested in.
They've invested in it. Yes.
So you're sitting there, you've got this idea, you kind of park it for a year.
Yeah.
Then you doubt it for another year. You kind of like, I don't think this is really that great of a thing. Maybe people don't even want this.
Yeah.
How do you test it? How did you start to figure out that this was going to be an actual opportunity? Did you test it on a few people before you committed to going into it?
Yes and no. So I sold solar in Florida. My wife and I gave birth. I guess my wife gave birth to our baby I didn't give birth, guys. I say us. It was my wife, babe. I'm sorry if you hear this. That was all you. So, no. So we had to come back from Florida for a few months, and at this point, I'm like, okay. We stayed with my in-laws for a few months, and I'm like, well, I sold him his solar system, so I'll just get up on the roof and clean it, right? So that was in 2022. So trying to start to take action, but we don't know how long we were going to be in California at that point, right, for the baby. And then I said, no, I'm going to go back to Florida, so I'm not going to do it. So I didn't clean it then, but then when we came back for my wife's health issues, and I think you've heard that story. I told that on a podcast or on a Zoom call with Andy. That was January of 2024, right? That's when I cleaned his panels. Right? Or that's when I would get up there and say, okay, you know what? I think this is something that we should start taking action on. So I would clean my father-in-law's panels or my in-laws' panels. And I said, so yes. And then I said, people are going to need this cleaning because they're always dirty. Their panels are always dirty.
Now, were you able to see a difference in the performance?
Look at this. I had a customer actually. This is actually, let's see, one of our first clients, John. John, you're the man.
Everybody needs a John, by the way, in business that's an avid supporter and willing to give some feedback to the business.
So this is on August 15th of last year, right? And this coincides right with the data that we had researched, right? He says, I have an app on my phone which shows the daily production for my panels. Prior to your cleaning them, I was generating 12 to 13 kilowatts per day, right? Kilowatts meaning like
unit of measure.
Yep, unit of measure. Since that cleaning, 16 to 17 kilowatts per day, which he registered a 31% cleaning, a 31% increase, which, when homeowners want to do their own research and they say, is solar panel cleaning worth it? Absolutely. Because for them, they see, on average, according to the market, 20 to 25 to 30%.
Dang.
And then we have data that backs that up too.
So you started kind of working on friends and family, kind of figuring it out, right? And I think this is the fascinating part. This is like the thing I think that like most either aspiring entrepreneurs or even those that have like taken the leap of faith and gone into starting a business. This is like the trickiest moment where you walk away from what you know, what you're comfortable with, your income stream.
Yeah.
And you bet on something that is more unknown, right? And you really got to bet on yourself and your ability to make it work. So you're kind of you're figuring this out, but what is and I would love for you to tell a little bit about that moment, as your wife has this major health concern that comes up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And like, is this all happening at the same time? You decide to pull the ripcord on starting a business at the exact same time?
Yeah. Well, it was, again, because remember the thoughts had been there. It was more so saying, you know what, avoiding the fear still, like anymore. Like I'm done avoiding the fear. But it was more so pulling the trigger during that time.
And so you've got some form of savings. Like, how did you get yourself covered to start the business?
We that's one of the blessings of selling solar. So we did decent in solar. So we came back for again. So her medical insurance wouldn't take. So she has my wife. God bless her, man. She's such a unit. She is an absolute ox. She is just so strong. She had a tumor, just to kind of put this all into perspective, right?
Yeah.
She had a tumor that she found when I believe it was 15 or 16. She's in high school, right? She gets brain surgery, and they alleviate, all the headaches, like not just headaches that you get on a daily basis, but like
Chronic.
she felt like it was like hammers hitting her head all
Dang.
the time, right? So they alleviate that. Her brain's fine. There's still a tumor in there, right? And then fast forward to 2023, we find out that she has one of them's grown, because she now gets her MRIs once a year, right? Closer to the when this first surgery was, it was more like 2-3 times a year, and now it's just once a year. In fact, she actually just got hers done today, like today filming, like she got hers done today, this morning. And so they found it was growing, and they said, we're in Florida at this point, and they said, okay, any chance we can do it here? And they said, and so we talked to some insurances in Florida, and she had her whole history, because she's 15, 16. So she had a whole track record. She's 24, 23 at this time now. So this has been 8 years, 8 years of history. We don't want to leave those doctors.
Sure.
And so we asked, can we double cover here in Florida? And they said no. So her insurance, the closest state for us was Georgia, which was Kaiser Permanente. So Georgia has Kaiser. But we said, should we go to Kaiser in Georgia or go back to California? Right? And you're like, well, we should probably go back to California where we have family. And so we go back. And at that point, thank goodness we sold solar, because we didn't know how long we were going to be gone. We didn't know how long her recovery was going to be. And thank goodness for us ripping deals in 2023, because we had close to $150,000 saved up, which allowed us to live. Let's say I didn't work. I could be full-time with my wife if she needed us, and go from there, and say she couldn't lift more than 5 pounds for like 2 months, right? Because the pressure on the brain.
Sure.
Yeah. And so it was a godsend to be able to have, like we were talking about this earlier, you look back in hindsight and you think, why did I do solar? Right?
Yep.
Huh. Maybe it's so I could have had all that savings. Pest control definitely wouldn't have gotten me there, unless I was recruiting big teams or doing it. If it was just me, unless you're pulling, putting into investments and then pulling from whereas like straight cash capital, solar is a lot quicker. It's a lot bigger. You can get it a lot faster, right? And so that carried us through for the first few months.
So let's look at that moment, because this seems like a really significant moment in your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like full stack in January 2024.
Yeah.
And you put yourself in that position. You've got your wife having this surgery.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 2 daughters, 1 daughter?
Just one.
1 daughter. Okay. How old is she at the time?
She, at that point, this is January of 2024. She was born October 22. So this is almost a year and a half.
She's a toddler. I mean, she's a year and a half.
Completely dependent.
Okay. So you've got your first child. You've got your wife that can't lift anything for months. You've got, and she needs to be taken care of too.
Yeah.
Coming out of surgery.
Yeah.
And you decide at that point to start this business right then.
I mean, it was, I don't know if it was right then, but it was.
Was it just before this? You were kind of already.
Let's think about that. I mean, it was in that time frame. It would have been just after.
So just after, somehow.
I think it was just after.
Somehow. Look, I mean, this is what I love to look at, is like the moment that we decide to take action and move on something.
Yeah.
And what pushes us, what drives us to do it. Mm-hmm. You've got enough savings to get by, to cover. Yeah. For a certain period of time.
Well, yeah, we had planned is like, look, if I don't work for a year, Let's just say I don't work for a year.
You got runway for a year.
We have runway for a year.
So,
That's saying like not spend, like being very frugal with
of course,
it, right?
of course. So this is like where I think this is such a phenomenal story, and it's so commendable to look at the entrepreneurial spirit and the belief that you had in what you could produce, that even in the face of the adversity, even in the face of the extra pressure that you had on you to take care of your wife, to take care of your daughter, to be like, I mean, most of us don't have to do two-a-days like that, where you're working and you're also having to take care of everything at the house. And you could have gone to what you know, you could have gone to what was easier, but you decide to go into the unknown at that point.
Well, we actually tried to go back. I went back and sold, I would fly back and forth from Florida to California, Florida to California. I would do 6 weeks there, 4 weeks here. Or
But you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that once this happened.
we went I left 2 months after the surgery. 2 months after the surgery when she was able to carry stuff. That's when I went back to Florida to continue selling solar, right? And there's a whole nother story behind that. But yeah, we tried to do that. And that's what led into there's something still calling us.
Wow. Wow.
Because of what happened when I went back to Florida.
Wow.
I had 4 deals in the pipeline. And to put into perspective, there was about $45,000 in the pipeline, right? $45,000, right? Those 4 deals. You talked about some of your cancellations, how it was like boom, boom, boom on the same day.
Yep.
I was catching a flight back to Florida. I was actually in Sky Harbor here in Phoenix. And because I'd come out for an event here at the Elliott Group. Or no, I was out here looking at a different option for work, looking at all my options. And I get this text from operations at the solar company that said, so-and-so canceled. No reason. And I get another text later. I touch base now. I'm like, what's going on with the other clients now? Call our office manager. He's like, yeah, that one canceled too.
Boom.
And I'm like, okay. Come to find out, both the others canceled, right? And now I look back in hindsight. Now, even though we're still in the thick of what we're doing, and I say there was a reason. Granted, would it have been nice to have that money? Absolutely. But what lessons did I learn from that? From losing that money that would have kept me comfortable? Maybe, Ben, I needed to be uncomfortable and learn how to not have money because I had it, I had just gotten it and just closed deals and it just came.
Well, if those deals sign, you don't start the company.
Maybe.
Because when you're relying on something like that and it takes your focus away, and it's like the burning of the bridges. You really kind of need to burn the bridges if you're going to actually make something work. Yeah. Right? And it's almost like, those bridges got burned for you in a sense to let you see the path.
We talked about hindsight again, going back to that. I would say I would say I also believe that that's why it happened.
Well, and that's a good segue here. I mean, I know faith is a big deal for you. You're, as you mentioned, you're a devout Christian, yeah. And faith plays a major role for me as well. But as you look at that, do you feel that, and where, I guess, where do you rely on faith in this journey of kind of building this company and going through this process? Like, how has that shown up for you in the journey?
Like in the sense, like how has faith helped me drive it?
Yeah.
It's a great question, man. So the shirt we have, right? It said impact over everything. Yeah. I told you I'd touch on that. There was this time actually in April. This is when a lot of these deals had started falling through. I think one of them had canceled at this point. And I had this distinct thought about where are we at? Let's pull this up. But it said right here, April 10th at 9:17. It says PM. I said the note. I was driving and thinking. It says, I'm not defined by my money. I'm defined by my impact. And that really started helping me separate myself from the money. That was, I think that was the conception of that in my life, was stepping away. And that was a little bit of faith. Never had to do that. I've always looked at money, and I still kind of do. I'm working. We're still working it. I think we all are, right? Money's always important.
Of course.
But it says I'm defined by my impact. So that's why on our shirts we say impact over everything. What impact are you going to give? Because the message stands for, it doesn't matter where you're at financially, whether you're at zero, you've lost everything, all of our deals, right? Or you have the whole world in your back pocket. If you're not offering impact, you're not doing anything still.
Yep.
And so that was a big leap of faith, is to accept that as like, okay, this is important.
And sometimes to get to the point where you're actually in a great earning position, where you're making a lot of money, it's got to go to get there. You've got to go through a path of chasing impact first.
Yeah.
And it's not, if we're so focused on, well, what's my calculated best way of making money? That's a really dangerous path to find yourself on, because you'll wake up one day, years later, kind of like, where am I? Why am I doing this? I'm not happy doing this.
Yeah.
Right? That can be just as dangerous as finding yourself in a situation, like you said, where you're having to restart, or you're at zero, so I think that's a huge component of building something that really is going to be sustainable, something that's going to be really successful, is having that purpose behind the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
It sounds like that, just like, man, what a phase that you were in, right?
There's a lot of learning. In fact, I look back, I remember having this distinct thought at the beginning of 2025, actually, to add on to that. And it was, I'm going to miss 2024. Not that
Wild.
Even it was because I grew so much. It was a weird, it's like we went back to nothing. We lost everything. We're back to zero in a position we've never been in, because we've always had what we want.
Yep.
Right? We make great money to an extent, right? Comparatively.
Living comfortably.
We're on our own. We're starting our trajectory for our family culture gets brought back to zero. We learn a lot of lessons, and we're relying on but we've kept our faith. That's one thing we never lost. We never lost that. In fact, my wife and I, our faith was strengthened that year.
I'll bet.
Going into my wife's health issues again, there were some things. So just a long story, but we can talk on that later. But I missed 2024, but I'm ready to be moving on.
Right.
I don't want to go back. That was a good year.
What do you think the biggest lessons you learned about yourself in that process as you reflect on it?
First thing that comes to my mind, man, is how am I going to react in tough situations? Like, I was, as brutally honest as this sounds, I was prepared for my wife to die.
Man, that's heavy.
I was ready for her, so in our faith, we believe that we live after we die. We believe that there's a life after death. So, and we were married, and in our church, we believe is that you can be sealed, or marriage doesn't die when we die. We're married still.
Eternally.
Yeah, an eternal marriage, right? And so one of our ecclesiastical leaders, right? He gave a speech. He gave a talk. We call it a talk, a speech, same thing, right? Discurso in Spanish, discourse. And it was titled "Think Celestial" or "Celestial Thinking." And what's crazy is that talk was given October of 2023. We had found out that she needed surgery August of 2023, right? And so when he gave that talk, we looked at each other and said, babe, this is for us. And so as we prep for the surgery, it's like, all right, our worst case scenario is still really good.
Wow.
Because
that's faith right there.
Because if she died, because we know how to think celestially, we know we're going to be together. This is just a blip in time.
Oh my goodness.
Does that make sense?
I mean, it makes sense, but it's a whole different thing to accept it.
Yeah, if she would have died, it would have been rough. It would have sucked. But we were ready, and I said, all right, we'll figure it out.
I mean, these are the principles, right? Like you prepare yourself for the worst, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have to make peace with the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate risk. I mean, this is a really big part of doing something like starting a company even, you know, you have to be ready for what the worst case scenario could be,
Yeah.
right? And obviously when it comes to your family, this is the ultimate level of it. Like you learned this at a level that is 10 times more more important, more relevant to life than a business is. But that seems like you've built, you know, I like to say it like in my journey, I've always said, and even in our toughest moments, when we thought, you know, the business might fail, or we thought that, you know, there was, you know, COVID hits and there's crazy circumstances, I've always said to my wife, you know, look, I'm not worried because, and the way I say it is, I trust my legs. And I kind of learned that because when I was in my 20s, I went and hiked for 3 months on the Appalachian
You
Trail.
still look like you're in your 20s, but
Well, hey, I appreciate that. I'll take that as long as I can get it. Um, you know, but I just learned that like, man, I really like I can trust my legs, man. Like, because I walked through 4 states on that hike. Walked from Georgia into Virginia.
holy smokes.
So, I mean, but those types of experiences, right? Like I started that's my saying. So like I trust my legs. And what I really mean by that is at the end of the day, everything could go away and I still trust me to rebuild it. I trust me to make it through it. And so for I don't know what it is about, you know, being a guy and body, you know, lifting weights and stuff like that. But like for me, it's like, dude, I trust that I can carry the weight. I trust that like no matter what happens, I will get these puppies in motion and I'll get myself out of that
I
situation.
love that, man.
And it's those trying moments, right, where you do have to put them into action, right?
And you found, and you were able to learn a lot about yourself during that.
Dude, I've learned, you know, and really more so in those moments where things did go wrong.
Yeah.
It's where you learn, it's where I've learned the most. And I found a way, you know, where it's like, oh my gosh. And so this is kind of the thing, like you got to prove that to yourself through these experiences. And it sounds like for you, 2024 was a year that built trust in yourself,
Yeah.
that you know you can handle some of the biggest, heaviest, scariest situations. I mean, that's dude, like I don't even know if you realize it. That's like that is unstoppable fuel in entrepreneurship, is to have that kind of trust in yourself.
And I wonder, that's powerful. I wonder if the Lord needed me to trust my legs. So he gave me, like you're saying, so he gave me an opportunity to walk the Appalachian Trail.
He gave you your chance to really put it to test.
There was another experience January 6th of this year. I won't ever forget the moment. I'm holding my daughter, and she's a little sick, right? She's 2 at this point. This is a couple months ago. And she's sitting on the couch, and I see her kind of acting weird. She's kind of like you know, like when you're like waking up and you kind of
Getting startled.
startled, kind of like that. And I see that happen. I'm like, that's not normal. I see it happen another time. I'm like, all right, babe, come over here. Like, what is this?
What's going on here?
What is this? And then all of a sudden, I see her eyes roll back,
Oh my goodness.
and I'm like,
Seizure.
I get really scared. I get like I'm kind of it was I don't want to say PTSD because that's a heavy term, but it was more like her eyes roll back, and I pick her up. And I know when someone sees you, you're not supposed to do that. That was my first reaction.
Well,
So I pick her up, and her hands are just her fingers are like this,
oh my god.
and I'm like, holy hell, dude. I'm swearing. I don't care. I don't care who hears what I say. And I'm like kicking furniture out of the way to go set her down. And anyways, it just turned out to be a febrile seizure. But at that point, I didn't know. That was scary. That startled me, right? Because you think like, what lesson I learned, I bring that up because I remember thinking how I reacted, my emotional state. I was paying attention to my emotions during that time. And I'm thinking, all right, we didn't know that it was a febrile seizure, which is a common thing with little kids. And then it was like, at that point, I was okay under the pressure, right? It's like I'm able to think cognitively during that time. Let's do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. Call here. Do this. Very aware.
Instincts kick in.
Yes, instead of being in shock.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's some shock there, but it wore off quick. And so I love that we're talking about how do we react in difficult experiences, because that was a distinct experience I won't ever forget.
You know, it's tricky. I have had to really discipline my approach to business, because there was a time that I found myself relying on the instinct and the reaction, right? Like I'm very similar, where I kind of did my best work in the most chaotic situations.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, oh crap, like now there's a big problem to solve, and I would jump
And
into
you're sharp.
action. Boom, sharp,
Yeah.
committed, focused, would go to war on that issue.
Yeah.
Right. And for a long time, as we chatted earlier, running an agency, you have an opportunity for chaos to happen all the time.
Yeah.
And so you kind of build your business and your approach to your business on this reactionary kind of cycle.
Sure.
Which is dangerous, because you got to have a more calculated approach to growing a company. You have to have, a way to be just as engaged and motivated in the boring times and in the boring work, the stuff that the mundane things that need to happen every single day. So I really had to get myself out of that mode and find a way to be like as engaged in the mundane, but very important, like Dan Martell talks about, right? Like
It's got to be
lit
up.
It's important, but not urgent.
Yeah.
Right. And so training yourself to operate in that quadrant in your business takes a discipline. Right. But at the same time, right, it's like, it feels good knowing that, and this is where, like, I think I see a lot of people that are really anxious, and it's like, if you trust your legs, if you trust that you're going to be able to react when things go wrong, then why are we stressing about what happens if? What if? Well, trust that you'll react. Trust that you'll kick in.
Powerful.
Right?
And it's trusting your legs. There's no other word to describe it. It's trusting your legs.
Exactly.
And because you've developed that in yourself.
When you prove it to yourself, that's the thing, it's like we all want to avoid the problems. We all are just, and this is, if you find yourself in this place where you're constantly like stressing about the problems that don't exist, by the way, yet. Oh, what happens if we don't hit our numbers next month? Or what happens if we this or this? That's wasted energy. It's wasted attention span, right? Because the reality is if that happens, you will react to it. And those problems, if you didn't have these other problems that came up in the past, right? Like you wouldn't know that you would be able to react to them.
It's almost like a precursor to what's going to happen.
I'm kind of in the space now where I'm a little bit like, just bring the freaking problems on.
Just let me have them.
Just bring them on.
I want to practice.
Bring them on.
Yeah.
Because I would rather, it's like, weight training. It's like, let's tear the muscle. Let's make this thing stronger. Right. And I think the more we lean into that and really understand that, like, the reality of running a business and being, the person who writes your own check to yourself, is that's going to come by solving a lot of problems.
There's a lot of problems.
And they're going to keep rolling in like waves in the ocean. They don't stop. It's not like you get to some place in business where it's like, oh, it's just
calm seas,
just glass water from here on out. That doesn't happen. Right. So it's just kind of, I like to be, weaponized in a sense for those moments and be ready for those moments, but not stress about them all the time.
Have you heard that quote? I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
100%.
I feel like that plays right
That's
to
100% the mindset.
It's like you're armed and ready, so that now when business comes along, what's going to happen when your top guy comes to you and says, "Hey, man,
I'm giving you my 2 weeks.
I took a better offer."
Yeah.
It's like, whoa. Now you get to like look inside, and it causes a lot of growth.
100%. So, you fast forward to now, right? So you're a year after, about a year after starting the company, right? And now you're just like in the process of growing this thing. And what a cool business. I mean, look, dude, like you have a grasp on how to market and how to build a brand. It's so clear. And whether you've like been, whether you were trained in this or not, like you've got an intuition for something that's going to connect with people. I love the brand that you've come up with. You walk in today and dude, he brings me his business card, which is an orange that's got a personalized message on it. So talk to me a little bit about like, how are you growing the company? How are you marketing? Like, what does this customer experience that you're building really look like? Because I can tell it's unique.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't want to take credit for the orange.
Oh, come on, steal the credit.
So,
dude.
but so with training with Andy, I got to give credit where credit's due.
All right.
I mean, granted, you also have to give credit to yourself and you run with it, right? But the idea started with Austin Cook.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
Austin Cook. He's out of San Luis Obispo. This guy's a unit. Got a high amount of respect for him. I was connected with, I was put in a group chat actually back in December of 24 with Brendan and Austin and Matt Richmond. Matt Richmond will be at the Brotherhood event, right? And I hop on a call with Austin in February and he says, what if you gave out oranges with a personalized message to all of your customers? I said, that's a really good idea. So I took it and ran with it. Dude. So credit Austin Cook for the idea.
Okay, so I'm even more impressed with the idea.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that being a student and listening and actually connecting with other people, sharing your vision with those people, getting other opinions and other insights and taking action on them is 10 times more valuable than relying on just yourself to come up with brilliant ideas. So even better that's how this thing came to life. Yeah. But how does that habit, like, tell me, like, are customers just as blown away by this?
Dude, so that's funny. I had a rough day. It's one of those days as entrepreneurs, as business owners,
getting kicked in the teeth.
It's like, even though we just made some money today, it's like, am I progressing?
Yeah.
Like, we had a good day. Like on paper, we had a good day. But it's like, emotionally, I'm like, dude, I just called my wife, I'm like, babe, have I even grown in the last 6 months? I'm having one of those days, right?
Those are tough days.
And it was like, because I just watched the Hormozy video where he said, you look back at 6 months. Have you changed? If you haven't, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you going to be the same guy? And so I'm thinking, have I? So that's my thinking, right? And so a thought came ahead, and this, I think God just bringing things back to your remembrance. He said, or no, not he said, but it was refer back to the pictures that you've taken, right? With all your customers. And so I have an album right here. And I was looking through and I was thinking, there's a common thread on every single picture. Every single one of them is smiling. Every single one. There's not one who's like, here's the orange, right? It's like when you're angry and you have to force yourself to smile, you automatically start smiling. And I just said, look at this. Smile. Funny face. He loves it. Hilarious. This guy loves it. He's an older gentleman. He's smiling the best.
That's the biggest smile that guy's probably ever
had.
Look
at this. I mean, just smile. This guy, I didn't think he was going to accept the card, actually. This guy's a phenomenal guy. I misjudged this guy. I thought he was going to be like, oh, that's weird. What are you doing with? No, he was actually one of my nicest customers. This big smile. And so it was like during that day, I thought, I'm putting smiles on people's faces. That's a success. Why don't we try looking at that? And so the whole vision behind the company is we want to create a customer experience. Create a customer experience. And how can you do that? And just be unique with it. So one way is we're going to run with Austin's idea.
But his idea comes because you branded this company this way. You called it Good Vibes.
Yeah, so the name came from so that backstory. Again, credit where credit's due. I'm not going to take credit where credit isn't due. I was going to clean solar panels. So I started in June. I had a buddy text me in August. He said, hey, we should clean windows and solar panels. Right. And so then we formulate, he comes up with, the brand, like the idea and the name. And then, I helped design the logo with him and all that jazz. So there was some involvement in there. and he runs his own another business. He has another completely other business, right? And so I say, he gets to a point where he's like, look, I think it's best if we just kind of separate, right? I'll stick with doing my thing, and I'll just here. So I paid him out for what he needed. It was a small payout. And I said, great. So full access to everything. I have
100% ownership now.
So I kept the branding, right? Kept the branding and just started running with it, right? So, and that's where kind of like, okay, so you have the idea now, and now that's where the creative juices started flowing. Is the idea was there with the help of others, right? And then you start running, carrying the idea and keeping that idea on fire.
But getting to know you, like, and following you on social, and if anybody's watching, follow your social. What's your handle?
Good Vibes Glass and Solar.
Okay, follow that handle because you make such great content. And watching you at work, watching your energy, watching the way that you're so passionate about what you're doing, dude, it's like, it is wild. You are this brand. Like, getting to know you, the first time I saw you and I saw this logo, I thought, oh my gosh, how creative. But then when I felt your energy, I was like, that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. So like, I feel like no matter what role you played in naming it or not, like, you are the Good Vibes guy.
100%.
And that's like, how cool to have something that connects with your inner energy, because you're bringing that thing to life. And I'll tell you something else that, like, dude, your business, there's something I've really held on to a lot, because in tough times, it takes time to grow something.
Yeah.
All right. It takes a lot of effort to grow it. And there's this metaphor or analogy of what it looks like to grow bamboo.
Okay.
And so bamboo, you plant that seed and you water that seed for a year. Climb the mountain, you water it, you climb down. Okay, nothing shows, nothing. Whole nother year, you water that seed, nothing happens. The third year, when you're watering that seed, it will grow 100 feet in that third year.
That's insane.
So there's so much going on under the surface, but you've got to have the faith to keep watering, and know someday this thing's going to grow. But when it does, it grows so fast. And so I'm just watching you work, and I'm watching the energy you're pouring into this business. It comes through every single day when you make that content. And I don't even know that you realize how much is going on under the surface. Hearing you say, like, has anything happened in 6 months? That's totally normal. Yeah. You're looking at the ground. I don't see anything growing out of this ground. Is anything even happening here?
Yeah.
But it's unavoidable for the energy, the emotion, the feeling that I see in those photos, and the passion that I see for what you're doing. Like, that is going to grow so exponentially for you if you keep pouring into it. And you just got to have that faith. And that's the entrepreneurial journey, man. I mean, it takes that commitment.
Yes, and to add on to that, I'm so grateful you bring up the bamboo example. There's a quote by Jeff Bezos where I'm not going to take the time to pull it up. I'll just paraphrase. It's not verbatim, right? But he says you could take 4 or 5 years or whatever of grinding and see no results, and then in the 6th year, everything just blows up.
Yep.
Right. So I love that principle.
There's a story in Think and Grow Rich that I think about it all the time, actually. And I won't get the story 100% right, but basically this guy during the gold rush, have you read Think and Grow Rich? Okay, well, you got to put it on the list. It's phenomenal.
There's a line in the queue. Right?
Yeah. Well, it's great to have a queue. In fact, when I get to the bottom of a queue, I'm like, this is a problem, man. Like, I need the list to build back up. But there's a story of a guy that basically like goes out to Colorado and he's mining for gold, and he basically finds gold. He finds a really good spot that's really potent. He finds a vein. And he then gets loans, or like gets people to loan him money for the machinery, and he's drilling, he's following this vein, and then it runs out. And he's like, oh my gosh, it run out. So he keeps digging. He keeps
But
trying to find it.
had he been getting stuff this whole?
Yeah, he'd been getting stuff out. So he got some out.
Okay.
Okay. But then it just ran dry. He
Okay.
got to the bottom of this vein and he was like, that must be the bottom, right? And so he finally ends up trying to sell off the machinery. And he's like, this is done. This is like bottomed out. And so he's trying to sell the machinery, and this guy that comes by is like, yeah, I'll buy the machinery and like buy the land from you, whatever. And then he calls a guy out that's a surveyor, and legit, the guy, as he was 3 feet away, 3 feet away from the main track of this vein.
Stop.
And the guy who had bought it, like the surveyor is like, oh, he was three feet off after he did his analysis. He's like, it's here. And that guy ends up making millions drilling out this thing. And so that guy knows that this happened, by the way. And so
He's trying to come back, right?
well, his thing was he ends up being very, very successful. But this becomes a really big lesson for him that don't stop too soon, because sometimes you're just 3 feet away from the thing you're hunting for, right? So like in your business, in any business, sometimes you do feel like I hit the bottom of this thing,
Yeah.
right? But you don't know if you're just 3 feet away. Are you 3 months away? Are you just 3 months away from some big opportunity, right? So, you know, it's really like a great story that I keep in my mind all the time, because, you know, you never really know if you're right there with something. So
I love that. And that's so here at the Elliott Group, that's one thing, that's one lesson actually to continue to keep going on that. That I, like Brendan Whiting always talks about that. You know, Andy always talks about that. All the other coaches, I just work with Brendan close. Like it's like you never know whose hand you're going to shake. What if that handshake led you to the 3 months down the road type gold?
100%.
Right? What if or, you know, even our conversation today and off the cuff was just like, I think that might be a conversation that,
100%.
you know,
I have a weird philosophy that I've carried with me. I don't know where I even got this, but my philosophy is this: the doors of opportunity swing open a few times in a lifetime for everybody, for every single person.
Yeah.
The question is whether you're going to be in momentum, ready to walk through those doors when they open. So I have always thought of it like a train that like rushes by. If I'm just like standing still and the train is coming by and I'm trying to get on this train, can you imagine just like trying to like stick your arm out and get on the train, right?
Yeah.
Versus running in the same direction the train is going while it's passing you. If we're going in the same direction, I can easily hop on this train and go. And for me, you know, the first big door of opportunity, and it's like just crazy, man. Like I end up going back to school at 27 years old.
Okay.
And I'm like, because I had studied marketing as an undergrad, and I just played the game of school. You know, I was like, oh, this is what I got to do. I'll go to business school, whatever. Kind of like got a 3.2 GPA or something, finished school, just like whatever. I was already working at the time, so I thought I was gonna like already, my career was taking.
We're already here. Yeah.
I was like, I don't really care about this. But then I kind of have this like very early midlife crisis at 27 years old, because the 2008 recession happened and the company I was at the time downsized, laid everybody off. And I was like, okay, so I go have this vision quest. I go hike the Appalachian Trail and I come back and I'm very dedicated. I'm like, you know what? I want to like achieve at a standard that like, I want to see how good I can be. Yeah. And I knew school was an area that had great measurement. It just was very finite. Like you could just black and white. You're either like, you have a scorecard basically. So I said, look, I'm going to go back to school, but only if I achieve a 4.0 GPA. I want to see, I believe I'm smart enough to get perfection in my grades, straight A's across the board. If the second I'm not in a 4.0, I leave school.
So you went back to almost test it for a while to say, okay, am I going to get a 4.0?
I was like, I want to see how good I can be. And I also had the commitment of, I'm not doing anything that I don't want to learn.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick what I actually care to learn.
You're invested in it.
Correct. Yeah. So I laid out all the degree paths in front of me that I thought were interesting. Yeah. and I'm looking at them all. I'm looking at like the curriculum of them, and the one that jumps off the page is visual communication design, the study of the human eye and how it processes information. Essentially, what this path is graphic design.
Okay.
And I have to take student loans out to do it. My wife's like, "What are you talking about? Like, it's a second undergrad. This is not master's program. This is not like I'm getting some PhD or something like that. Like, I'm going back for a second undergrad in graphic design. For all I know, the job's gonna pay me $45,000 a year at the time, right?"
So your wife is only thinking like, all right, like
She's like, "What do you?" I'm like, trust me. If I go here and I deploy myself at this level, good things will happen." I go into the program. I am obsessed with the program. Obsessed. I go in there, and I'll show you this after the pod. I'm thinking I'm going in there and we're gonna like walk into computers and we're gonna get on Adobe Creative Suites and we're gonna be doing graphic design. And like I had seen that in my previous job. I have a marketing undergrad, so I'm like, this will just work out perfect. I come in and I find out on day one that the first year of the program is no computers. It's all like art class by hand, painting, doing things. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I was awful in art class. I don't have this skill.
this ain't going to
This
be.
isn't me. I'm like, and then they tell me, they say, look, 425 students have enrolled in the program, but there's a capstone at the end of the first year, and only 85 students will make it past that capstone.
So it was 85 out of, remember the number?
425.
420. Wow.
So only less than a fourth are going to go forward. Now,
And you're starting with 0 art.
zero. And if you don't pass, you just forfeit whatever you've invested in the first year. You're going to have to pick a new path, basically. And so I'm like, okay, so do I think I can do this? And I'm like, I'll figure this out. And what I will show you afterwards is they have this assignment that's pencil pages, where you take a pencil and you shave it with a razor blade just to the lead just showing, okay? Turn it into a chisel, basically.
Yeah.
And on a piece of huge paper on artboard that's 45-degree angle, with your hand, you have to draw a 1-inch perfectly straight line with a gradient. So that means you start with high pressure, go to light pressure in the middle of the line, and then return down to hard pressure, okay? The first one of these, and you're supposed to line up like 12 rows of these things perfectly 1 inch apart. It's supposed to look like a machine did it, essentially. Okay. The first one of these I did looks like my 6-year-old son did it. I'm not even kidding, dude. It is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. By the end of that capstone, I passed with one of the highest grades in the group. I passed the capstone. The pencil pages look like perfect.
Real quick. So you've shaved it down. Let me just get back to this. Like you shaved it down. So was the lead this far out?
So like basically you're exposing like
oh, so it's not like it's gonna snap if you put.
It would. It can.
So you have to be extra.
And dude, you've got a little piece of sandpaper, and you've got to turn it into a chisel, okay, by sanding it down into a chiseled point. Dude, I'm telling you, these pencil pages will blow your mind. But anyways, the thing here is, I became freakishly obsessed to go from complete crap to just mastering this assignment. Now, there's a bunch of other assignments that we had to do. And I still have no guarantee of riches coming from this, right? Like I'm taking out $70,000 of student loans to do art class, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't want to be an artist. It's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking somehow if I can see myself, prove to myself that I can be at a standard of excellence that is perfection. And so I was chasing this whole year. I get through it, and then they come to me and they say, we're starting a master's program. We want you to be in the master's program instead of being in the undergrad. I'm like, that's good. That's better for my future. I'll do that. And
they recognized you.
Yeah, they recognized me. Fast forward back to the opportunity door that opens. So here I am in motion. I'm in momentum. I'm obsessing. Okay. I'm producing at this standard. So we get into learning web design, again, this is graphic design. This isn't computer science. This isn't like I was learning to code. They're like, we're going to learn how you design web pages. And we're going to give you some instruction on how to build a basic HTML page so that you can code just that design.
Okay.
Right? And then we get an assignment that's like for the Phoenix Zoo where they're doing their 50th anniversary, and there's an opportunity to like design the homepage experience of the 50th anniversary. I locked myself in studio for 2 months. I have video of this where on Thanksgiving, I'm in studio at 1 a.m. grinding, building. I ended up building an entire site, coded the entire thing with a database of the different animals so that you could search them, find them, pull up all their YouTube videos, like super way beyond.
Just like
the site.
So in depth.
It's way beyond the assignment.
Yeah.
Okay. I win a Design Excellence Award for it. And then at the time, my sister's boyfriend was, and I didn't know him yet, but he was vice president of a nationwide door-to-door sales company.
Okay.
Tons of offices nationwide. And when I meet him, he said, your sister shared this Phoenix Zoo thing with me. And he's like, and I need your help. He's like, we are awful at branding. We're awful at our website presence. Like we don't know what we're doing. But when I saw your work, I thought, oh my gosh. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll take a look at your guys' stuff.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I pull together some totally amateur report where I'm like, I graded them on their design and how they were set up and this and that. And he's like, I'm sending you $5,000. I want you to get to work on building prototypes for us. Did that for him. Fast forward a year later, I'm hiring my fellow students. I've got $1 million worth of revenue coming in from this area. And I then get introduced to a huge software client that needs a big piece of software built. And the project's worth like $500,000. I tell them I can do it for them. And I end up sitting down with my professor and I say to him, who's a great guy, I said, look, I got a hard thing here. I've got a lot of money flying in on the side on running basically an agency.
Yeah.
And I said, but I'm now at a point where if I take this project, I'm not going to be able to maintain a 4.0. Up until this point, I had a 4.2 GPA in the program. I've got a year left in the program.
Yeah.
I've taken out $65,000 worth of loans. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, I said, I just can't do, but I promised myself I wouldn't stay in this program if I didn't get a 4.0. And he's like, some people need school, some people don't. You're at the point you don't need this. Go start your agency. So I walk away from school, don't get the paper, quit because I knew I couldn't take this job with keeping the 4.0. And then I end up doing that project. That client ended up paying my agency $8 million over the next.
The pest control.
The direct sales company ended up being our biggest client for the next 5 years. But that software project, the big $500,000 contract to build this piece of software, ended up being a contract that paid $8 million over the next 7 years.
Talk about an opportunity.
But the key thing here is that the opportunity door opened with this connection. It's not like I found this person. They kind of found me. Yeah. And they said, well, I think we need help. If I hadn't obsessed about that website for the Phoenix Zoo, if I had not locked in and been in momentum on a standard of excellence, that whole opportunity doesn't happen. I don't open my agency.
You don't see it.
I end up just kind of finishing the program, maybe taking a job as a graphic designer. I don't even know. So
who knows?
So it's like you said, you never know whose hand you're going to shake. You never know who's going to come by your way. My philosophy is you had better be ready. Mm. You had better be at a standard of your own production that you are able to take advantage of the hand when it comes by. Because in my opinion, you're going to have a few. There's going to be some ridiculous opportunities. Yeah. And you're right. You may not have even seen them if you weren't at that standard of excellence. They may not have seen you. Yeah. So it's something that I've always, and even to this day, that's how I approach building the companies that I've built is I don't know where this necessarily leads, but I know we must take it so seriously and do the absolute best work we can do because you never know.
Let me ask you a question. This is a thought that came to my mind when we were talking about this. Do you feel like then that if people are reaching out for the opportunity, like lending the hand, right? That's the train running by. Do you feel like that's a sign that shows that you're ready to take that opportunity? Or like, did you see the question? Like, does that play hand in hand? Is that a telltale sign that if someone notices you that you're ready to take that that you're already in momentum? If
No,
you're ever doubting yourself?
I don't actually, because the nuance to the story that I left out was, so he says, "Hey, I think I'd like your help. I think I'd like you to look at these sites.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what you think."
Yeah.
And mind you, I'm still in the school program. I'm still like grinding. And I tell him like, yeah, I'll look at them. I'll send you my thoughts by like next week, right? The night before the date I committed to sending this to him, I'm sitting in bed next to my wife, and I get this kind of like refusal of the call, right, in the hero's journey, where the call has come to me, the opportunity has come to do this thing. And my mind, I said, man, I didn't get it done. I'd have to stay up all night to get this done. I had other stuff going on. And I said to my wife, I said, you know what? I don't even think this is going to go anywhere. I'm just going to blow it off. And she is truly the like force in my life. She said to me, get up right now and go into that office and get that thing done and send it to him. And I went in there, and because I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Sit in bed next to you and tell you I'm not going to like chase opportunity? So I go into the office and I hammered that thing out that night and sent it to him. And I still have that document, like that document, it built the entire business. So, but it's just crazy, man, because that's how easy it would have been to miss that opportunity. Just that, right? Like, so yes, was the opportunity available? Yes. Was I in momentum and in position for it? Yes. But even I could have self-sabotaged that from happening. So it's like
maybe like you're running, but your shoes are untied.
100%.
It's like, I got to tie my shoes. It's like, no, kick your shoes off.
And get on this thing.
Or just throw that shoe off and start running.
It's like there are double doors that just like swing open for a second, and you got to get through them, and then they close. It's that fast. Like, in my opinion, when people come through and something opens up, you have to rush to it.
Why do you feel like it's so quick? Is it
because I think that this is just my sense of it, but I think that real opportunities are fleeting. I think that it's almost like a challenge. Force is kind of everything in physics, right? Like, I think that it takes a lot of force to create something big. And I just feel like when somebody, I mean, you think about it yourself, right? Like, let's fast forward. You built this company, it's kicking ass, and you see somebody and hey, this guy's really good. I interacted with him. I think he could be our sales manager, and I think he could run the entire divisions or whatever. You know what you're seeing. And you say to him, you know what? Hey, I'd love to meet with you. This guy's got no reason to meet with you. But you say, I'd love to have you come down to my office next week and just have a chat with me. I think there could be something here for you.
Yeah.
That guy has to blow those doors open. If he misses that one little bit, if he says to you, I'm busy next week, you might be like, okay, cool, no worries. I'm just going to move right on. That could have been him stepping into running an entire division of your company, potentially, if he gets that opportunity. Wow. It's just little things. I think that we can't underestimate when somebody's willing to give you a shot. They're doing that because they think they see something. You take one misstep in that and you don't show them that you're ready, committed, prepared, motivated for it.
Or at least maybe if you're not even ready, but you're just ready.
Motivated
to move forward. You don't know where or how.
You don't need to know.
You may not even be ready.
You don't even need to know
on paper,
how.
You may not even be ready.
Dude, this guy said to me, like, we need reputation management help. He's like, we're really getting killed on Yelp. I'm like, what's Yelp? And then I sent him a report, like, auditing, like, their reputation, right? Like, this is the thing. Like, it takes determination.
I love, 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 love that. We had an experience with a guy like that earlier this month, end of last month, end of last month, right? And have you ever read the book Thin Slice or Blink by
No, but I know this book.
Blink by Malcolm Gladwell?
Yeah, but I haven't read that yet.
Incredible book. He talks about it. It's called it's called thin slicing. And he says that you can get more. The thin slice theory says you can get more from trusting your gut. It's like the thin slice. You have a thin slice of information. He said, "I'll do it next week." That's a thin slice. Now you can now you can thin slice the guy and say that tiny bit of information tells me
a ton,
an encyclopedia worth of who this guy is.
Yep.
Right? Because
that's all it takes. Missed opportunity.
Yeah. And so
that's it.
And they do study. He gives a study even where he says, I don't want to butcher the study. I'm going to give the best. I remember it. They give college students 30 minutes to analyze an other college student's dorm. And then that's one group. They give another group time to spend time with the people, with the people who live in the dorm. And they say, now analyze this person. More accurate was the 30 minutes.
Is that right?
More times than not. It wasn't 100%, but it was the higher percentage than the ones who were able to spend days and days and days and be with them, analyze them. Point is, it's like you see it, just run with it.
You got it, that, and that's the thing.
I feel like that's thin slicing.
I feel like it is, and I think ultimately, like if you're not putting yourself into a place where you have to start the momentum. You have to be the one that's put something into action. That's when the opportunity doors will open, right? But I just feel like you can't expect that there's always opportunity. I feel like, and this is just a weird philosophy because I believe that anybody can create any life that they want to create, right? Especially in America, they can do that. But, and a lot of people will say, well, oh, you got lucky, or that person got lucky, or they had a handout, or they got this. Look, the doors of opportunity open several times in a lifetime for every single person, if you ask me. It is simply a question if you're ready for those doors when they open.
Oh, that is so beautiful.
That's it. Like, and that's why I think that a lot of people, like, they're kind of playing it like in like a low gear because they're kind of like, well, I'll kick it into high gear if you give me an opportunity. You know, it's like we hear this. I heard this from I think Dan Martell. I've heard it from Alex Hermosi. I think somebody reached out to Hermosi and they said like, hey, I want to do your videos. I want to be like your video editing guy or like whatever it is.
Because it's cool to work for Hermosi.
Yeah, I want to be that guy, right? And Hermosi's like, dude, like, I don't get it. Like, why doesn't this guy just start doing it and like show me? Like, why did he reach out to me and I'll do it and he said to him, his offer was, I'll do 100 videos if you guarantee me the opportunity.
It's like, what if you just did 100 videos?
That's exactly it. Why wouldn't you just put that into action before you even talk to him? Edit 100 of his videos, take that content down, put it into momentum, come to him and create the opportunity.
Here's a thumb.
Hey, just so you know, I did 100 videos edited for you. I just wanted you to check out my stuff. If you love it, I want a job with you. Dude, that guy is getting a job.
You thin slice that guy. You can thin slice that guy's hustlers too.
100%.
He shows you, he's like, you're telling me, like, I don't know how long it takes to edit a video.
It probably takes an hour to edit.
But you're telling me you edited 100 of my long form videos?
Cut them down into shorts, showed you what I was about. Most importantly, showed you how serious I am about wanting this opportunity with you.
Yeah, that's the thin slice.
Right? So, I mean, look, it's like sometimes you have the opportunity that you're chasing, but then there's situations like what I was saying is like, I didn't have a freaking opportunity I was chasing with the website I did for that. I was chasing me. It was me and against me. I was like, I'm putting this in motion for me because somehow I think that will prove to me something. It'll put something in motion in my life. So, you know, it's crazy. Well, let's get this bad boy home. We've talked about faith. We've talked about the balancing act in your personal life, this journey starting this company. Like, where do you see the future of you? Fast forward. What are you trying to hunt after over the next, I like to give a realistic future view. I don't love the 5-year views or the 10-year views. I think those are always aspirational, great. But like, what is the next year? What is your big thing that you're hunting after and growing this company over the next year?
I see us being a reputable company that people talk about, that people have in their mouth, that we're in people's mouths.
So I love that. And these are just part of the ways that you're starting to create that
Yeah.
that action out there, right? So, and at this point, you've started this company with your own sweat equity in the company. You said, "Put this on my back. I'm going to be our first employee. I'm running this thing." At this point, who is on your team with you?
My wife.
Perfect partner, in my
So
opinion.
she does all the social media. I run the stories. She does all the posts.
Oh, so she's the one that really gets the credit for this. I love that. I love that,
So I'll
dude.
give credit where credit's due, babe. That's all you.
So that's a really interesting point that I'd love to just touch on really quickly. Working with your spouse, being an entrepreneur, building a business with your spouse. It's how I've worked my entire career. Building my business is with my wife. I met my wife in business, and she has been, to me, it has been the best component. It's like added so much to our relationship
Yeah.
to be in the game together. I think a lot of couples talk about how that's like difficult.
Yeah.
But for me, I can't imagine doing it differently.
Because that's all you know.
It's all I know, but like I can't imagine going to a job, her going to a job, having two different worlds. You know what I mean?
And having to coincide, yeah.
We're hunting life together. We're doing the whole thing together. So to me, I love that. But for you, how's that experience been kind of starting this business and starting to do it with your wife?
Learning a lot. And one thing I've actually had to think about is I still have to hold my wife accountable. It's the business, but she still has to hold me accountable. But I'm also her husband, and she's also my wife, right? So it's like I got to hold business Brianna accountable, and Brianna's got to hold business Ryan accountable.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's not like we're turning something. It's not like we're just changing people, but it's like we also just can't be objects in each other's eyes. It's not just our marriage isn't the business, right?
Right.
We're building the business together, and we're going to bring the whole family along with us, like the Elliots talk about. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
At the same time as like do you see the
100%.
and so that we've had to work through that, and then also.
What's your best tip for separating? Like good or bad day, right? Like usually the bad days are the harder days to separate these things from that personal relationship. How do you find some form of like protection for the relationship you have as husband and wife?
That's a great question. So actually, it's crazy to talk about this because I've had some thoughts here recently about what's it called? I call it the self-check audit. This was on the 21st, on Monday. I wrote this down. It's called the self-check audit. Ask yourself these unbiased questions when there is a disagreement, dispute, or any other form of escalated conversation where you may feel as though you are right and they are wrong, right? So I'm going to answer the question more so of like in form of if we're going to have disagreements, right? And I think we can apply that of how to overcome. So I'm going to do it here. So you can ask yourself, did I say this action with any malicious intent? So it's unbiased, looking inside. Have I earned the right to speak this level of boldness with others? Could my tone be diluting the message in the receiver's eyes? Am I being genuine? Do I have their best interest in mind? Am I sacrificing my moral compass? So that way it's like you're auditing yourself. And if you can answer those all honestly and be like real, then it's okay. Babe, you're right. I think we needed to do this instead, And then that will translate into the marriage. Because she's like, well, I see you doing that in the business. Well, let's do that in a marriage too. Yeah. Like the business is the marriage, right? And the marriage is the business, right? So it's like, it can translate back and forth, like husband, business, right? Wife, business, right? So there's that. And then another principle was, it's the opposition. It's the opposition and questioning principle. So we had a disagreement here earlier this week, and this thought came into my mind. It says there's opposing someone and there's questioning somebody and questioning someone. If we're opposing them, we're doing it out of malicious intent. There's no form of understanding. If we're questioning them, there's a form of understanding. So all opposition all opposition is questioning, but not all questioning is opposition.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so we need to strive to have questioning thought instead of opposition thought, because the opposition thought leads us apart. The questioning thought, for example, would be like, well, I'll give an example of both. Opposition thought. Let's talk politics, right? For example, say she's Democrat and I'm Republican. Let's just say, right? Or say she's Republican, I'm Democrat, right? She says this, and I'm like, you're wrong. Your emotions are now involved. You're wrong. I don't agree with you. I think that's stupid. I think that's dumb. Now all of a sudden she's attacked.
Yeah.
She's under fire.
She's on the defense.
She's on the defense. Now the questioning part would be, that's an example of opposition thought, is I don't agree with anything you say, and I don't want to agree with anything you say. Questioning thought would be like, in the business, hey, I think we should do this with our social media. Or I think we should do, this idea, I've seen it work. We've talked with some coaches, and, this looks like it could be an example of, what we could do, clean windows this way, right? Or whatever, clean panels this way. Questioning thought would be like, I really like that idea. I really like that we're thinking together. What makes you feel like that would be a good idea, though, in the business? Help me understand that, right? Help me understand, because I don't feel like it would, but I want to know where you're coming from on that. So it's like, because if it's good, we should implement it.
Right.
So that's the difference between questioning thought and opposition thought.
100%. I mean, it took me a long time to get the right working relationship. There's like the work component, and then there's the at-home component. Yeah. It's interesting though, because I think that it's unavoidable in a marriage. We're relying on each other for something. Yeah. So even if we're in different jobs, right? Like you don't have to make some of the same decisions together and collaborate the same way, but at the same time, you still got to like bring home the paycheck. You still have to be accountable to that. And so the thing that I started to find is that, number one, when people say, oh, we just turn it off, like we just turn off the business at some point, I'm like, that doesn't happen. Okay. For me, it never was able to be turned off. It's a full integration. There's times that we're talking about business before we go to bed, as we're, going to bed, because there's a lot going on. I found that the biggest thing is assuming positive intent. I try to assume positive intent because, and here's the other thing is that I have had to learn that my wife is, and women in general, they have such a fast processor. They can see things before my wife sees so much and is able to provide so much feedback about, and the reality is most of the time it's like, you know what? I need to step away from my emotions on this, process what you've said. And reality is like, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Right. I need that other opinion in the room, right? But the biggest thing that I was having a hard time with, that we realized is I needed other people around me that I could bounce ideas off of, not just her. Because when I laid all of it on her and relied on her as the sounding board, and I was like, oh, I'm like trying to figure out whether we like launch this or do this, or gosh, I don't know, and like this is a problem and I got to solve it. Yeah. And you bring all of that to your partner, it puts so much pressure on them to have answers. Yes. And that's not, at least for us, my wife really wanted to see me go solve things and be the man and handle some of this. And so my big thing was getting into a network, getting around other business owners, having another sounding board that I had as my group to be able to go to, throw things at, work out my thoughts a little bit, and not just be dumping it all on her.
That's huge.
So that's kind of the big thing that I found in the partnership is like really make sure that she's not the only person.
I would agree to that. I've seen that actually. So I'm glad you gave that example. I would add to that because I think that's super powerful. We just had an experience this week with Austin. We hopped on a call with Austin. Now, who joined me? Brianna did.
Yeah.
And now Austin has been kind of like a sounding board, if you will, right? He's been a huge help. So have other guys, so have other people, right? But now she's there. And now she can hear the repercussions of that sounding board.
Yeah.
And now she's all of a sudden using her intuitive nature to say, wow, let's run with this. And now she's all of a sudden going alive.
Getting that buy-in is huge too. I did a lot of personal development on my own, and I was like doing things on my own, and then I'd bring them back to Michelle and be like, "Oh my gosh, like that doesn't work very well." That's why one of the reasons that I think we both probably love the Elliott group is it's together. It's together, so we hear that same stuff together, and we're both growing in the process, and we're both bought in on what direction we want to be taking.
Yes.
It's huge.
I love that, man. Thanks for bringing that up.
Of course. Of course. All right, well, let's wrap this bad boy up.
Rock and roll, baby.
I guess the last thing I would leave on is what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody that is kind of in a similar position that you were in, debating whether they should bet on themselves and chase the ambition. They've got an idea. They're thinking about going into entrepreneurship, but they are just kind of stuck not making the final jump into it. What would be the best advice you could give that person?
I'll read you a text message. That one, I won't say his name, but because I haven't asked him about this, but I'll read you the text message that he said. And this for me was because he's a friend of mine from Florida. And we had talked about, when I'd been there recently, we talked about me starting the business and how he was like, man, that's awesome. I'm actually looking to do the same thing. He came out and told me that. I'm like, wow. So he sent this to me. And I say, I'm reading this strictly to help articulate my thoughts. I thought about it after. He sent me, one of my guys, talking about how his circle of friendship has crumbled. Right? He says the difference is only one of those dudes stayed authentic over time, and one of those dudes has had the balls to solo follow his dreams and start a business. So that's who God sent. He sent Ryan, a guy you can trust and will be in your inner circle for the years to come. Came by to remind you to take the leap and stay true to yourself. God also knows I only respect earned, right? Or get sold by people who are actual dogs and earn every penny not given. Another thing anyone and everyone thinks of when they think of Ryan, he has earned everything, so naturally couldn't come up with an excuse and therefore got his message. So thanks, my friend. You were an official kickstart for me. And just gives me chills is you just need to take action. Get over your fear, because we talked about, I told him my story. I was like, I had so much fear. We talked about at the beginning of the podcast, 2 years. 2 years of fear. I don't know where I'm going to be. I don't know 2 years of fear. 2 years. Granted, I look back in hindsight, I needed those 2 years of preparation now. I don't know if those 2 years helped me, right? So it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? But the good thing is you got to take action now. So for me, I was able to tell him like, hey, let's just say his name's Rob. It's not Rob, but let's just say his name's Rob. It's like, Rob, take action. You know what you got to do. And you're good at what you do. So go do it. Doesn't matter how bad you suck at it. Do you feel prompted to do it? Does the thought stay there? If it's still there and it doesn't go away, no matter how hard you try to take it away, take action.
If not now, when? Yes. Right? Because there's never going to be the perfect circumstance. You're never going to have the security. You're never going to have the guarantees. There's always going to be a potential downturn in the market coming.
Yeah.
There's never a perfect time for it. And, I would compare it to the same advice I've given to a few friends throughout the years that have been with a great partner, right? And I asked them, like, oh, are you guys going to get serious? Are you going to get married? Whatever. He's like, you guys seem great. And they're like, well, I'm just going to wait until I can buy this ring.
What does that mean?
And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, you're certain this is the future mother of your children. This is your ride or die for life. Like, this is your person, right? And they're like, yeah, I know it. And I'm like, and you're going to let a material object like a ring and this thing, and I've also heard, not just the ring, I'll wait to have kids until I feel like I'm financially secure enough. Now, obviously, if you're like completely poor, don't like rush into that. But that's not the case in most of these situations.
Yeah.
It's waiting for an ideal scenario. I'm like, that doesn't happen. Like, if you're ready to take, it's almost like the big question is, for me especially, if I would have waited to marry Michelle until I had gotten my shit together, I would have never gotten it together. It was getting married and going through those evolutions that got me to that spot.
Oh my God.
Right? Like, you can't evolve to this state that you're like thinking needs to be present for you to start a business until you actually start the business and go through the process and find yourself in that state.
Yeah.
So I think you're so dead on with that piece of advice. Take action.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to do, if you're determined and that's what you want your future to look like, stop wasting valuable time, take action, start the lesson process, and put yourself on the other side of it.
I love that.
Killer, man. Hey, this has been awesome, Ryan. Thank you so much for coming down.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
All right.